So, Dad, we've been talking about style,
Yes.
and you can't really have a true discussion about style without talking about content,
Right.
right? And I know you have some serious thoughts about this.
Yeah, of course I do. As an artist, content's really important to me, and we need to understand. I suppose define some things here. Um, you know, content isn't subject matter. Content is deeper. In fact, one of the best definitions I think I've ever heard of true content would be that which your work gradually reveals, but really doesn't parade. And I think one of the problems so often with Christian art is things are paraded. I know when I have, I teach at a secular school, but once in a while I get a Christian who takes my class because he knows that I'm a believer. And he gets real excited about that. So he wants to make what he calls Christian art. And the trouble is, what he does is the person parades everything. There's a cross, there's a dove, and it's so superficial, it's so shallow. And I have to tell them, listen, this really isn't what art is about. In fact, I'm reminded of the words of Marc Chagall, the famous artist, and he said that a work of art must be elusive if it is ever to acquire its true identity. And so I've thought about that. When you do create something, it shouldn't be just all on the surface for us. Now, we as Christians, we love to have things on the surface because it seems like all we want to do is communicate. But as we've been trying to point out, throughout this series, we're going to be talking again and again how that really isn't the stuff that really counts. Jesus didn't do it, and I don't think we should either. And so I was thinking about one time about I was reading through the book of Revelations. And I'm looking at this and I said, man, this is an amazing book, because I don't understand a thing in here. It's just kind of crazy. And then I was thinking, wow, this is like great art. It's just like great art. But when I look through Revelations, I read it, I try to understand it. There's something there that stirs my spirit. It's the only book in the Bible that says that if you read it, there's a blessing that's attached to it.
Even though nobody's going to understand it.
Yeah, even though nobody's going to understand. Of course, we try to understand it, and every generation has, books written about it, what this means, what that means. But in the end, nobody really knows. And this is God, writing this book. So he's giving us something where really it's very ambiguous in many ways. The only thing that we really know is that the book is telling us, hey, in the end, God wins. That's it. And so, I'm looking at this and say, well, listen, if God is an artist and he's writing a book and he's got this great ending for this epic story that he's telling us that we call the Bible, and here is just Revelations. And, I would love, I know when I go to the movies with Mom, we hate movies and she hates them in particular where the ending isn't all wrapped up nice and neat and tidy because it kind of leaves you disturbed. And isn't it curious that when God writes the Bible, that's exactly what he does. The last story, we know God wins, but what's that final thing there? We just don't quite know, you know what I mean?
And for decades, we've been trying to figure out, like, okay, this is it. This is the beginning of the end, or this is the beginning of the end. And it's like, everybody's always wrong.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, when I read Revelation, I feel into it. There's something, when I get done with that book, I feel something. And again, what I'm always trying to do as a visual artist, I'm saying to myself, okay, now how do I apply this to what I make? So again, I don't want my message to be just blatantly out there. I want people to come to it almost like layers of onion skin being peeled off bit by bit. One of the things that I found, I go to art shows all the time, and I buy art and I trade for art and so forth. And I'm always excited when I first get it and I hang it on my walls. Well, the work that has real depth and has real value and so forth, the longer I live with it, the richer it gets, and I'm finding more every time I come back. But the ones that don't have that, they might, be like eye candy at first. But in the end, that just loses their appeal. I get bored with it. And after a year or so, it winds up in a closet, and I probably never take it out again. I don't want to be the guy that makes that stuff. Okay, and when I listen to musicians, I'm looking for that music that is so rich that creates great thought. And I can't help think of, for instance, Bob Dylan. I grew up in that era where he was popular and so forth, and I love Dylan. And one of the reasons I love him is I never know what he's talking about. I'm still trying to figure out what 90% of his songs mean, and the song "The Weight." What is that thing really about? But that's what makes me come back to it. What does this mean? And I can talk to 5 different people and they give me 5 different meanings. Now, to me, that's great art. And I think that's true of great writers. They don't lay it all out for you. There has to be that mystery. There is something about the mystery of and this is what content is. Content is that richness, that depth that's there.